Welcome to Business Sense. I am Ralph Rivas. For today's episode, we have Richard Bates, Manulife President and CEO. Hi, Richard.
Hi, Ralph. How are you doing? Thank you very much for having me here.
Now, I want to talk about the impact of the pandemic on the economy and, in particular, the insurance industry. People's fears have been heightened. People have been fearful, running out of money and drowning in debt because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So, tell us any particular trends that you've observed during this pandemic.
Yeah, Ralph, it's a good question. I mean, listen, this has been tough. It's been a tough period for everybody, and particularly as you recognize, as people are continuing to want to make sure they provide the best livelihood that they can for their family. It's absolutely critical now more than ever that people are taking care of their finances and looking after themselves and their family and their health. There's been a few trends that we've seen coming through. First and foremost, right from the beginning of the pandemic, we saw an increased interest in health protection, an increased interest, no surprise, on making sure that people are properly covered, but also at the same time that they make sure that they take care of themselves, both physically and importantly, mentally as well. So we've seen over the last year and a half quite an elevated trend in that area. I mean, secondly, we've just completed a study about Gen Ys and Gen Zs, and the findings from that study are also very parallel to that and very interesting. So we're finding that a lot of millennials continue to be interested in making sure that they're putting their money in the right place, that it is yielding the type of returns that they're looking for. But at the same time, we have Gen Zs coming through, concerned about their mental well-being, concerned about their job opportunities, concerned about really how they will also be able to be financially solvent and financially well protected going forward. So what we've seen overall is, despite the challenges that we're finding in the pandemic, we are certainly seeing that there is an elevated interest in people making sure that they look after themselves and making sure that they're financially as stable as feasible and as stable as possible.
Now, that's pretty interesting. Gen Zs, I guess the older Gen Zs would be the first one to get it, right? Because I can only imagine that maybe their first job is, they're working from home. They haven't really experienced the feel of the office. So moving forward, how does Manulife interpret that phenomenon? Do you see this hybrid work affecting everyone and different industries differently, or in particular, how does it affect the insurance sector?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. I mean, you've got this generation of Gen Zs, and if I can just take a moment, my oldest is 22 years old, and she moved into the workforce a couple of years ago. And within 6 months, similar to everybody else, had moved into a work from home structure. Very new and very unusual for people to be in. And I think the Gen Zs, however, are remarkably well equipped to be able to handle a hybrid type structure in terms of the digital skill set, in terms of their capabilities, really does align. Now, in terms of what we see in trends going forward, I think it really depends on the industry in question. So in terms of, we look at the life insurance sector, we're quite privileged at a place like Manulife, where our customers, we have a service and we have a product that can provide for our customers. Our agents, our insurance advisors, at the same time have a digital means in which they can deliver that service. And then ultimately the company also has a way that it can continue to support both the insurance advisors as well as the customers, so that all three parties can actually stay at home and continue to be safe while we ride out the pandemic. Now, having said that, we still find that going forward, I think you will see a more of a hybrid approach happening. So although, for example, Manulife started its digitalization journey way before the pandemic, and we were fortunate that on day one of the announcement of the lockdown in March last year, we were able to switch to 100% digital overnight in 24-hour period. Now, going forward, the reality is we're unlikely to stay 100% digital. And we are already we have people back in the office, we have agents going back into their branches, we have agents meeting customers when it's allowed and permitted in their various areas they live. And so what we're seeing is a far more hybrid approach. And I think this will be quite common, certainly in our industry, as we look going forward.
Now, actually, I have some figures with me from your study. It says here, 87% of the younger population have started preparing financially. If something happens to them, 79% of millennials getting their insurance plans, and 92% of Gen Z is considering availing their own life, health, and variable unit link policy. Now,
Yeah.
variable unit link policy, can you elaborate a little more on that? What does that mean exactly? And um, what are the main considerations on their preferences in particular?
Yeah. I mean, I think to me as an insurer, there are a couple of elements to this. The first element is making sure that from a health and well-being, you are protected. Number one priority is to make sure that you're protecting yourself. And that's the core element of what life insurance provides and offers. Now, if there is an opportunity to also have an investment element, so should nothing happen to you over the course of your policy, you have some residual value left at the end of the term and the end of the policy. Now, what we are seeing in terms of our next generation coming through, they are as mindful as any other generation about making sure that they are putting their money where it makes sense for them financially, but also at the same time that they are able to make sure that they're protecting themselves. And this is what a VUL product essentially provides, is both that core element of protection coupled with an investment element. Should nothing happen to you, you have an opportunity to be able to recoup some of the investment over a period of time. Now, coupled as well as that, we also have an investment management business which releases UITFs. And we just launched last year a UITF called a money market fund, which is a perfect entry level for a pure investment vehicle for the next generation to be able to start investing in fund vehicles for them to be able to move forward. Now, I think to me, again, this is very important, because what it does is it gives that next generation a foothold into investment, as well as the existing VOL products, gives them an access and a foothold into the protection and the insurance coupled with the investment. This gives them essentially a broad range of suites and a broad range of products that they can really take advantage of as they look to protect their health, as well as also make sure that they are investing sensibly as they move forward in their careers.
Yeah, so that's pretty good to hear that my generation and the younger generation are really looking into investments. I
Yeah.
mean, me personally, I kind of wish that I started earlier than than uh,
Don't, don't
than
we
most
all, Ralph?
people,
Don't
right?
we all?
Now, I want to talk about the uh, the impact of the pandemic on Manulife Philippines. How are you guys adjusting? Are you going to be working from home until the year end or even until next year? What are your I don't know, any silver linings that you see during this pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple of things to bear in mind in terms of the workflow and how we're structured. We have roughly 15%, possibly more, 15 to 20% of our staff on site, and that could be either in the branches or it could be on site on the office. And meanwhile, we allow, and our agents are able to come to the branch and work from there, as well as also work from home. So we've got enough flexibility in our design and structure that people can work where they feel most comfortable. Now, going forward, the human element that is so critical to our industry is not going to go away. But we need to make sure that as we bring it together, we do it in a safe and secure manner. And that is absolutely our priority for our agents, our customers, as well as our staff. And so in terms of the hybrid approach, we are having people coming into the office. I'm in the office right now, for example, and we are continuing to make sure that people are looked after and protected as we go forward.
So the 15 to 20% in the office that are physically there, what types of jobs are they doing? And which I mean, are you considering to have the flexible work arrangement be put permanently?
Yeah, it's interesting, Ralph, because we actually had the flexible working arrangement before the pandemic. So we already have a flexible structure already in Manulife because of the demands, as we all know, in the Philippines, of the types of commutes people have. We had implemented this going back to 2018, 2019. So in fact, the shift of being able to move to what has now been 100%, almost 100% work from home, and then the future shift that allows for a hybrid structure, that's nothing that's particularly unusual for us and something that we've had in place for quite some time, to really try and give people more control and more flexibility about how they work. But in terms of the kind of the type of functions and operations, typically we'd have our CSOs, our customer service officers. They will be down in the branches, being ready to service customers who wish to walk in and attend to things personally. We also have a lot of people in our call center, as well as our operational side, our underwriters, our claims team, and various different other operations teams. But at the same time, it's not limited to just the service side of what we do. We have our sales support team. I've seen our HR people coming into the office. The reality is there's a limit to a lot of people of how many hours they're comfortable doing at home. And if there is an opportunity to come in and, if I'm honest, have some Wi-Fi, have some air conditioning, get someone else to make the coffee, this just makes a difference to how people's energy levels are. And so we encourage people to come in a safe and controlled environment, and that's what's really important. But going forward, as I say, I think the hybrid structure we've already had in place. And as I look out over the next, as we come through the pandemic and we come to a place where we are going to have people returning to the office more frequently, I think we will always have a number of people who will continue to work from home and come into the office and take both approaches.
Now, I've talked to many CEOs already, and they said that the pandemic is perhaps the challenging, in their career. Would you say the same to you? Would you consider the pandemic is the most challenging? This is it. This is the most challenging thing that you've ever experienced. What did you learn from this? And did your leadership style change during this period?
Yeah, good questions, Raul. I've often reflected on this myself. In terms of the pandemic, yes, it is a challenge. There's no doubt about it. It's a challenge for all leaders. But this is irrespective of the pandemic. There are challenges with all types of leadership. And what's important is that this is why the opportunity to step up and the opportunity to make sure that we look after our people, look after our customers, look after the company, that exists all the time. Now, I arrived here in the Philippines in the middle of 2019, and roughly 6 months later, a little bit around then, we moved into the pandemic. Now, the reality is, the one thing that I miss is not being able to see my people as much as I'd like to. The other thing I miss is not being able to see as much of the country as I'd like to. So I only had a chance to go out and visit about 50% of our 55 branches. So I managed to get to about 23 of our branches before the pandemic hit. So I still miss the opportunity to get out and travel and see those. But as I look at kind of what it means for me and the team, I'm really fortunate that I have a very, very strong leadership team around me. I am always very reliant on a leadership team. I believe that we as a team run this company. It's not just me as an individual. We as a team lead this company. And it is important that all of us play our part. And as all of us come together, and this team has been exceptional. Right from day one, the moment we moved in, we knew the wave of potential lockdown was happening because I'd observed other Manulife businesses in China, in Hong Kong, and we'd observed this. We knew that it was very likely. So we started preparing about a month or two before the actual lockdown occurred. So when the lockdown did get announced, we were ready to move and shift. And this to me is so important, to have the right people around you, the right people that you can trust, that you can rely on. And this is very much the way that I like to run an organization, very much the way I like to have an inclusive style that really brings people together. We work on each other's strengths, we rely on each other's strengths, and more importantly, as a team, it's helped us get through this. And I think the last year and a half for Manulife Philippines has been exceptionally good, considering the circumstances. And I'm, again, very, very proud of my people to help us get here.
Now, it's too bad that you haven't really traveled the country, or you've seen the country, but just a couple of months, and then we went into a lockdown. But the insurance industry has been one of those industries that have been quite resilient due to during the pandemic.
But many other industries are not as fortunate.
Now, I can imagine Manulife can take in those job losses from other industries. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure, very happy to. I think the as an insurance advisor, that element of our business, a lot of people make an assumption that an insurance advisor is a sales job. It's not. It is an advisory job. It is a servicing job. It is a responsibility towards a customer throughout the entire life cycle of a customer and the entire life cycle of the service that we offer them. And so actually most of the time, most of the people that we've been able to recruit into our industry during the pandemic time, be them young millennials or older who've been displaced by changes in their previous industry, have very often come from service industries. It could be hotel and tourism, it could be flight attendants, it could be a number of different other services. Banking is another sector as well, where the service element is very strong. Not all of them have necessarily had sales experience beforehand, and not all of them have certainly had financial sales experience. And that's not really what's important. What is important is the ability to be able to understand and learn from a customer perspective the value of what insurance and what investments bring to the customer. And that ability to be able to put yourself into another person's position, hear what their challenges are, and help them shape the solution to meet that, that's the difference between a successful insurance advisor and one that possibly is not as successful. And so we've been fortunate enough that we've had a number of people join us from a number of these service industries. And this is one of the benefits of life insurance, is we are able to have a service that is still in demand by our customers more than it's ever been. And we also have a means to deliver that service while everyone can stay safe. And that is quite unique to our industry. An industry that has a strong purpose, an industry that has a strong drive to make sure that we're looking after people and helping them and their families. And really right now, there is now more than ever is the time for our industry to be absolutely accountable and absolutely reliant and respondent to what our customers' needs are.
Mm. Now you mentioned that you've took in people from the airline industry, from hotel and hospitality. So how many have you recruited, and how many more do you need? And maybe now's the time to ask those that have lost their jobs that this could be their track.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you look out for the industry, and I think what we're seeing is there is always a demand for insurance advisors in the life insurance industry. There always has been and there always will be. It is part of how we grow the industry. And Manulife has been here 115 years next February. So we're coming up to 115 years old. We will be here for another 115 years. And in that time, we need new blood. We need the new generation coming through, because the new generation understand the needs of their existing. They understand the needs of the generation that they are a part of, that they can actually help and advise. And this is why you're always looking for new recruits, always looking for new blood to come into the industry and to come into your organization. And this is so, as we've looked through, we've continued to recruit over the course of since the pandemic began. We haven't slowed any of that down, and we are still very optimistic about how we continue to grow the business. And I think as an industry and an opportunity that it presents, particularly millennials, Gen Zs, it really does present a huge opportunity. And a chance where you have a flexible lifestyle, a chance where you can really help other people and make a difference in other people's lives. And there aren't that many industries that allow you to do that. We train, we educate, we will support, we will help you grow. And essentially, that to me is such a great opportunity for anyone that is potentially either displaced in their current job or is coming out and being a fresh graduate and looking for an industry to move into. It's a very noble industry that has a lot of success for many of our insurance advisors.
So, what about, flight attendants, those in the hotel and restaurants? What skill set? I mean, why them? Do they have particular skill sets that they already have that could be beneficial to the insurance companies? And what other? I wanna know. For instance, me, uh, what skill sets do I need to land a job in the insurance industry?
I mean, Ralph, good question. Be careful. I'll be recruiting you in a minute if you're not careful. In terms of those basic requirements, so minimum 18 years old, it's preferable if you have a university degree, but not necessarily essential. That being said, if you're talking about the kind of the personalities we look for people who have the ability to listen, the ability to show and demonstrate a level of empathy for their customer. They've got to understand what the customer needs are. And by listening to what the customer needs are, can shape and advise them on what is the best way that they can be looked after. Remember, it's not about just making a sale. It is also about continuing to service the customer going through. And we've had many insurance advisors who've been in our industry 20, 30 years. They've seen generations grow. They've protected both their first customers, their customers' children, their customers' grandchildren. We've seen them grow as the industry has grown. We've also seen our insurance advisors by our customers' bedside while they may have been in hospital in a difficult period of their life with a health issue, seeing them and making sure that they're going through the journey together. That listening skill, that ability to be connected with people is so important. And this is why people coming from the service industry very often are trained in a way and also developed, and plus they have a natural inclination to wish to serve, and that really makes a difference on the type of successful people who can work in the insurance sector, and of course news reporters as well, Ralph.
Yeah. Now, what about? I mean, news reporters, for instance, are very iffy with math and finance. So, and even I can also imagine for other sectors, right? So, do people? Do they need some background in finance and business to do this type
This
of
is what
job?
this is what we train. And this is why we have an incredibly robust, not just recruitment, but training. We have a very detailed 100-day onboarding program. We also roll the 100 days out, goes further with continued training through their first year, into the second year, into the third year, particularly as they go to different stages. We then train them as they're about to, if they choose to, go into leadership positions, and we train them to be prepared to be as a leader. We work with external organizations to continue to support. This is a very full and very robust industry. And what this does is allows us to make sure that anybody coming in who's willing to learn, hungry to learn, and willing to actually make a difference, we can absolutely train and we can help them get there. So there is an assumption that you have to be a finance major to be able to work in life insurance. No, you don't. What you need to do is be willing to learn, be willing to try, be willing to fail, and also reflect on what didn't work to be able to be successful. And it's that willingness, that resilience, I think, is really important. So no, rest assured, you don't necessarily have to have a finance background. Does it help? Possibly, it does help. And for sure, it depends very much on the person. But I still think that one of the key values is the ability to really, really hear your customers properly. And I think if you do that, this can be an industry that can serve you for a very long time.
Okay, and finally, I'm sure our watchers are curious. What are the perks working in life insurance as compared to their previous industries? Give us a little hint.
Sure. I mean, I think there are a couple of sides. Let me look at it from an industry perspective, then I can talk about the Manulife perspective. From an industry perspective, you have flexibility. You have flexibility with your time, flexibility around, how you manage your time. Now, we advise and we give a lot of support on the best ways to manage the time. But this, for many people, if they choose to take it evening, they choose to do it on the weekend, they choose to do it during the week, this gives them that flexibility. There's not necessarily a clock in, clock out type of structure. Once you've gone through your training and once you're licensed and you're ready to kind of be servicing your customers, so you have that added flexibility. At the same time, the income opportunities can be quite significant because there is no limit. Because you're not limited by time, there is no limit to how much you can actually grow and build up your business and build up your clientele base. And that really does give you quite a significant opportunity and quite a significant advantage over many other industries. Now, to add on to that, some of the perks that we see in Manulife is partly the recruitment and the training and the development program that we have. Very robust, very well tested across all of our markets. We've taken best practice, we've applied it here, and we continue to refine it and tweak it really as the next generations come through. But also as an organization, we absolutely value inclusivity. It is so much a core of who we are. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is one of our key brand values. And what is important for us is really as we try and develop our people, we develop them so that they are inclusive of everybody. Because everyone comes from a variety of different backgrounds. Everybody comes from a variety of different, and customers have different needs. If you're not able to understand the different diversity of the customer base, it becomes very difficult to also service and support them as well. And so from our perspective, we do, our kind of our global tagline being every day better. It's absolutely important and critical that for our individuals and our life insurance advisors, they really do go out there and genuinely make every day better for everybody else.
Okay, and on that note, I guess for those that have lost their jobs, maybe they could consider working for life insurance and Manulife. And on that note, thanks so much, Richard Bates, Manulife Philippines President and CEO.
Pleasure.
And I hope you really get to travel the country once the pandemic ends, or at least the restrictions loosen up a little more. And
Thank
I'm
you.
Ralph Rivas. Thanks for watching.